Welcome to Humans TV Africa. You are most welcome to Humans TV Africa. My name is Kato Mukasa. I'm a Ugandan lawyer interested in issues human rights. And of course, we are working here at Humans TV Africa. This is Humans TV Africa. I want to encourage you to please subscribe to Humans TV Africa. Our Facebook name, our YouTube name is Humans TV Africa. We also want to encourage you to please send us an email. Our email is info@humanstevafrica.com, plus our WhatsApp number right there. Our communication officer, Ben Kabek, will be able to talk with you and clarify issues and get you on board. If you want to be interviewed, please, Humans TV Africa is the right channel to join. Remember, we are a registered non-governmental organization working in different countries in the world. We have offices, we have studios in Uganda, we have studios in Nairobi, Kenya, we have studios in Zambia, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, UK, and of course USA, and we are still going. Remember, we are a humanist organization. We put humanity at the forefront of everything. That's why this show is all about protecting your rights, telling you about your rights wherever you are. Wherever you are, you were in the UK, you were in Europe, you were in the US, you were in Asia, you were in Africa, this is your TV and this is your program. The program is Human Rights Watch International. This time not Uganda. Today, we are talking about labor rights. We are talking about the right to employment, the right to employment and work, the right to employment and work. Remember, wherever you are, whether you're in the UK, this is your program. All of us are workers in one way or another. Whether you're in the US, Asia, Africa, this is your program. Please watch it. In the studio is Dennis Bongole, who is the director at Humans TV Africa, and of course, a producer of these and more shows. Now, today we're talking about the right to employment. Now, there are universal laws, including the basic fundamental human rights under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, international conventions on employment and human rights. There are international laws, or we call them universal laws, but also they are municipal laws. As lawyers, we talk about international law, but also talk about municipal laws. We talk about country laws. A country like Kenya has a constitution, and in the constitution of Kenya, there are human rights laws. There is Chapter 4, the Bill of Rights, which is Chapter 4 in Uganda, which is the same Bill of Rights in every other country. Whether you're in Sudan, whether you're in Malawi, whether in Rwanda, your constitution has a Bill of Rights, because these are universal rights. Now, the right to employment is a universal right, and the right to have a safer place of employment is also a universal right. Do you know that employing young people is a crime? Employing a person below the age of 14 years is a crime. In fact, the law says if a person is below the age of 14 years or is 14 years, you can give them light work, like say sweep the compound, fetch some water. That is light work. But now, if the person is 17 years going forward, now you give them a bit of more slightly not so light work. If the person is 18 years, then you can enter a contract with them. You can only enter a contract with a person who is above 18 years. If a person is below below 17 years, between 14 and 17 years, you can only give them light work. What's happening in the world today is modern day slavery, is human trafficking, is abuse of employment rights. We get young girls and export them to the Middle East, and they work as slaves. They are working at the same time. It's illegal to employ them. Let us have a look at this documentary courtesy of BBC. This is the footage from BBC. Let us have a look at this documentary.
الغالي المحطوط على الانترنت عندك
للامانه الشهاده ما اساسها بيها زينه، ولو تقعدها الساعه 5 الفجر ما تكشف نفسها وزينه.
فينا نشوفها.
In the Gulf, women employed as domestic workers are being sold online via apps approved and provided by Google and Apple. It's been called an online slave market. Our BBC News Arabic team posed as a husband and wife looking to buy a domestic worker in Kuwait.
Ready?
Yes. An app called For Sale is used to buy and sell domestic workers alongside cars and TVs.
فينا احنا اثنين نحكي.
قل له أنا وزوجتي على التليفون معك هلا.
The BBC team spoke to 57 users of For Sale who were selling their domestic workers online for thousands of pounds. Most women had no knowledge they were being advertised online and then sold.
عندها فكرة إن هي حتنتقل على مكان تاني أو ما عندها مانع بالموضوع؟
ما قلت لها، أنا قلت لها.
ما قلت لها؟
ما عندها مشكلة، واحدة جاية تشتغل.
App users were violating national and international law on modern slavery, human trafficking and forced labour by selling these women. They were also denying domestic workers their basic human rights.
إجازة بتاخد إجازة؟
لا إحنا ككويتية ما نخلي صراحة، إحنا مجرمين.
أوكي. بالنسبة للموبايل وهيك؟
لا انسى موضوع الموبايل هذا، ما أعتقد إنه يعني هذا من النوع اللي مو متعلم، فاهمني؟
يعني ما بدها تتكلم مع أهلها مثلا، إذا بتتكلم مع أهلها أو كذا؟
يمكن مع أهلها تعطيكم مرة في الشهر.
والقانون إيش بقول طيب؟
القانون احنا ما نمشي على
It's not the only app being used to sell women online. The BBC found hundreds of domestic workers for sale on Saudi app Haraj and Facebook-owned Instagram.
كيف حالك أخي؟ إن شاء الله طيب.
The undercover team arranged to meet with some of the sellers in person.
إن شاء الله بخير. بخير. الله يسلمك.
One of them, who told us he was a policeman, urged our team to break the law by confiscating the domestic worker's passport and denying her any time off.
شو بسوي بالمرور شرطي والنعم
جواز ما تعطي انت كفيلها. ليش تعطيه الجواز؟ ما يصير.
والله ما بعرف، أنا بالنسبة لي بستغرب يعني هيك.
الجواز تخش عندك تجوري.
أوكي.
حق طباخ، حق تنظيف، حق كل شيء.
هيدا نحط الإعلان من ساعة.
A new ad appears on For Sale. An African domestic worker for $3,800.
ألو مرحبا.
هلا
كيفك شكرا؟ عم بتصل فيك بخصوص العاملة الأفريقية على فور سيل.
إيه أنا شهر ونص وبنت حلال وشوشة ما تطلب شيء وآدمية.
في مجال شوفها أتعرف عليها أنا وزوجي هون، هو هلأ حد عم نتصل فيك.
حياكم الله.
شكرا.
The undercover team get ready to meet the seller.
First exit.
Nothing could prepare them for what happens next.
أنت وجه الأسئلة، أنا عسلت.
أي لا أنا بدي أتعرف عليها. هلو. مرحبا.
الله يسلمك. الله يسلمك.
تمام وأنت؟ هاي.
والله العظيم ما تعرف الزعل. شوفي هذا بابا هذا ماما. اسمها هي اسمها عربي لأنها مسلمة.
من غانا ولا من هنا؟
أنا أنسى من كذا ما غانا غينا مدري شنو.
من وين؟
ها؟
غينيا. أوكي.
وكل الناس تبي الخدم.
أكيد.
بس قدر الإمكان نبي لها بيت خفيف.
قد إيه
شوفي
عمرك؟
ماما هذه ماما هذا بابا.
قد إيه عمرك؟
أقول لكم الصدق اترك الأوراق. أقول لكم الصدق يعني عشان ترى عمرها 16.
We're shocked to find this woman offering to sell us a child. The young girl seems withdrawn and confused.
كلمة ويا ماما.
Je vais te parler en français. Tu as quel âge? Combien? 16 ans.
مسكينة ايه حسيت انا شوي هيك شو انتيوز شوي هيك.
هلا هي بتستحي صوتها ما بيطلع كثير بتستحي.
By employing a domestic worker under the age of 21, this woman is breaking Kuwaiti law and could face up to 6 months in prison. We showed our footage to Amila Bula, the UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of slavery.
This is the quintessential example of modern slavery. Here we see a child being sold and traded like chattel, like a piece of property. What they are doing is illegal. It is not only in violation of national Kuwaiti law, it is a violation of international human rights law and labor standards. So if Google, Apple, Facebook, or any other companies are hosting apps like these, they have to be held accountable. What they are doing is promoting an online slave market.
Google, Apple, and Facebook all claim that they prohibit modern slavery and human trafficking on their platforms. But we found thousands of domestic workers being illegally sold through hashtags used on Instagram and other apps provided by Google and Apple. The online slave market would not be possible without the system of employment used across the Gulf known as kafala, where a domestic worker's visa is tied to their employer or sponsor. Under this system, the domestic worker cannot quit their job or leave the country without their sponsor's permission. Kuwait has some of the strongest laws to prevent sponsors from abusing this system, but apps like For Sale, Haraj, and Instagram enable employers to sell the sponsorship of these workers to other employers for a profit, creating an unregulated black market that leaves women more vulnerable to abuse and exploitation.
That's the problem with that kind of system, is that the employer thinking that they own already the worker, but it shouldn't be the situation. It's only the service, but not the totality of the person.
Together we are stronger.
Anna Bunda is the founder of Sandigan, an NGO which campaigns for the welfare and rights of domestic workers in Kuwait. Following Anne's advice, we show our video of the underage girl to Kuwaiti authorities to see if they can help find her.
ضد القانون. لا يجوز له أصلاً أنه هو يتنازل عن العمل. المفروض كان واجب من صاحبة العمل هذه ما تتداول بهذه الطريقة. أي واحد يتعامل بالمسترجع احنا قاعدين يعني نوقع عليهم العقوبات. احنا هذا الفيديو راح نبتدي نبحث عنه يعني.
10 days later, they managed to find the girl, who we are calling Fatu. She'd been sold to another employer. They take her to the government-run shelter for domestic workers, where she's interviewed by a government official. She admits to being underage and is deported back to Guinea. Fatu is one of hundreds of underage girls trafficked each year from Guinea, West Africa. She's now living with an adopted family in Conakry, the capital city. Fatu says she worked for 3 different households in her 9 months in Kuwait, but was only paid 2 months' salary. She didn't want to show her face on camera, but she wants her story to be heard. Fatu is looking forward to starting school again and rebuilding her life in Guinea. But there are still thousands of domestic workers being bought and sold on Instagram, Haraj, and other apps available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. The policeman and the woman who tried to sell us Fatu did not provide us with a statement, and no legal action has been taken against them. The Kuwaiti government declined to comment further on Fatu's case. Following our investigation, For Sale, the app which was used to sell Fatu, removed its domestic workers section and said,
"The allegations are appalling and ones that For Sale completely condemns."
Facebook, which owns Instagram, told us,
"We do not allow content or behaviour on Instagram that may lead to human exploitation."
Haraj, the commodity app used in Saudi Arabia, did not provide us with a statement. Both Google and Apple told the BBC that this type of behaviour has no place on their application stores, and that they are working with app developers to better prevent illegal activity like this on their platforms.
Thank you so much, the producer, for that video. Viewers, you have seen the problem of unemployment and how it is resulting into trafficking. Unemployment and trafficking are twins. They are intertwined. They are twins. When people are unemployed, they are easily trafficked by people who want to make money out of their misery. Remember, Africa has the highest unemployment rate in the world. It is sad that despite the resources we have in Africa, Africa has the highest unemployment rate in the world. South Africa is the #1 country with the highest rate of unemployment in the world. South Africa, 29% is unemployed in South Africa. Djibouti comes second at 27.9%. West Bank, Gaza, there is a war there. It's understandable. Why should South Africa be unemployed? With Gaza, we know there's a war in Gaza. Gaza comes third at 25%. Eswatini, which is still in South Africa, in Africa, has 24%. And Congo, Republic of Congo, comes #5. The worst countries, the highest unemployment rate in the world are those 5 countries. Now, how do they measure unemployment? You get the number of unemployed people and divide it by economically active population or percentage of the labor force in your country. That's how you get unemployment. According to economics, you get the number of unemployed people in your country, divide that number with the active population of labor force in your country. That's why we arrive at these percentages. But sometimes I ask you not to look at these percentages. Look at the number of youth in your country. For example, Uganda has 27 million people below 35. And out of the 27 million people, 18 million Ugandans are not employed. I repeat this. Uganda has 27 million people below the age of 35. But out of the 27 million people, 19 of them are not employed, which means they are going to be hoodwinked by politicians. They always have rallies, and you see thousands of people coming. I tell you, people you see in these rallies are not employed. Baby Wine knows it, and other politicians know it. There's no way you can get people who are employed to come on these rallies in thousands during a working day. It simply tells you that the government has failed. People have no jobs. Let us have a look at more images. Now, unemployment is so rampant in Africa that people are always out there with placards, with posters, seeking for government's intervention to support them in one way or another, because unemployment in Africa is high. I told you Uganda has over 18 million unemployed youth. Kenya is worse. When you go at the percentages vis-a-vis the population, Kenya is even doing worse. Other countries in Africa are doing no better than South Africa. South Africa may be the worst case scenario, but other countries are doing better. Look at these people. Every time they are striking because there are no jobs. You cannot talk about 18 million Ugandans having no job and you think they won't be striking. They won't be supporting opposition politicians because they are unhappy, because they are not employed. Look at this photo. They are going to be showing you the rate of unemployment and how desperate people are. Look at the way the police basically handles those who go to work. Journalists who are going to cover these kind of rights are manhandled, are beaten. There is a police state everywhere. There are soldiers everywhere now. If you are going to provide me with a good working environment, why do you keep on putting soldiers on the streets? If soldiers on the streets, people are going to fear to go out and look for an economic activity. Remember, our Constitution, Chapter 4, Bill of Rights, gives us economic rights. But look at the way people work. Look at the environment of these people, the charcoal sellers. Look at the environment. Look at the track on which they put their bodies to go and do work. Now, these are unsafe environments. And because of that, people end up in churches in Africa. People end up in churches in Africa because they have no jobs, because they are restless, because they are hopeless, because they are jobless. They go to churches because churches promise them miracles. Churches promise them opportunities. That's why people go to church in Africa. They are poor. They are unemployed. In Europe, you will never see churches like this in the open. It's daytime. It's lunchtime. You cannot see a lunch hour fellowship in Europe. You will never see it. Now, workers like Jose here, who is the director here at HTV, is a qualified journalist. Now, this one means that you must be protected as a worker. It is his right to have that protection gear as a journalist going to work in the field. Now, those are the rights of workers. Now, you cannot go to work when your streets are full of soldiers who are shooting people. This is what is happening in Uganda. People are not employed, and to make matters worse, you put soldiers on the streets. It means people are intimidated. It means even the smallest job opportunities are taken away. This increases the unemployment rate in Africa. Security. Now, you have to give people skills like tailoring. Give them practical skills, catering, tailoring, driving. Give them skills. This is what we encourage people at Man's TV Africa, that the Employment Act of Uganda of 2006 gives you a right to work. Employ women, empower them. Remember, I told you that a person is supposed to work as long as they're 16 years, but doing light work. If they are 14 years, they can still do light work. Now, these are women at work. Empower them to work. Remember, we have a new Employment Act bill that has been passed by the Parliament of Uganda on the 24th of May, 2003, empowering these people to do work. Remember, we have also the Labor Disputes and Arbitration and Settlement Act number 8 of 2006, still gives people a right to work. These are people working, you see in these images. The issue is here that empower them to work. People want to work. If you can empower them to work, if you can make them access credit, make them access capital. A young boy like this one, below 14 years, is working, taking care of the hens at home. This is okay, because that is light employment. Women can only be happy if you give them opportunities to work. This is what HTV does in Africa, getting these women and encouraging them to work. Now, if you get people in the streets and shoot them, as it is done in Kampala today, there is no way they can be able to work. Remove soldiers from the streets of capital cities in Africa. I've seen soldiers in Rwanda. I've seen soldiers in Kenya. I've seen army goons in Uganda. These are army goons, men with guns, but not in uniform, parading cities in Kampala, parading cities in Uganda. There's no way people are going to work when they are being intimidated the way it is done in Uganda. The right to safer environment starts with governments by removing these militias from the streets of Kampala. Get armed people from the streets. This is what people in Asia are doing today. They go and campaign for fair wages, fair work. You see them there. They are in these countries in Europe. They are campaigning for rights of workers. You can see workers' comp is a right. Now, in Europe, people go on streets and demonstrate, demanding for their work. Do you know that you are supposed to be given a 7 days paid leave every after 4 months? That a worker should get 7 days paid leave every after 4 months. Now, this is why workers in Europe go on streets to demand their rights. How come that in Africa we don't see this? How come in Africa trade unions are not working? Yet the Labor Dispute and Arbitration Settlement Act give us this right to go and demonstrate for fair pay, for leave, for maternity leave, for allowances. How come that we don't see these demonstrations in Africa? It means that rights of people in Africa are being taken away by dictators in Africa. People are not employed. Go to Nigeria. The level of graduate unemployment in Nigeria is 65%. The level of graduate unemployment in Nigeria is 65%. There are graduates without jobs. They should be on streets in Abuja to demonstrate. But do they demonstrate? No, they fear arrest. In Europe, this is what they do because it's your right to demand the right to a fair employment opportunity. In Africa, girls are going to the Middle East to become slaves in terms of work. They are being killed there, and our governments are not protecting them. Now, this is a violation of the right to work. A right to work, people should be protected whether they're in Africa or beyond. The governments in Africa have a mandate to help people, protect them. They are saying, help me. The kadamas, as we call them, the housemaids, as we call them, in the Middle East, are saying, help us, help me, because their rights are not being respected. Remember, they are now going to Europe to seek employment. They are now going to Middle East to seek employment. Why? Because African governments have not provided a conducive environment for the right to work. Yet African governments have employment acts, have international conventions on labor, human rights acts, international conventions on human rights for workers. Remember, working is an economic right, which must be protected by everyone, and it starts with you by demanding these rights. This is Humans TV Africa. We are here to remind you of your rights, that employment is a right, that a better working environment is a right. Follow us by subscribing to Humans TV Africa, and please remember to write to us at info@Humans TV Africa and send us that message. Our communication officer will be able to respond to you. We shall get you into these studios without charging you, because this is what we do. We are a charity that is out there to empower people to take your rights back. Thank you so much. See you in the next one.
Thank you.